into today's senior speeches. Our first speaker today is Elijah Harper, and Elijah will be introduced by his grandfather, Stan Miles.
It's an honor for me to be here today to introduce our grandson, Elijah. I want to tell a story. Really happened a number of years ago, and I think it points to the type of person Elijah is and is in the process of becoming as well. In large part because of the lessons and friendships here at Collegiate. However, the story happened prior to his arrival here. And of course, the story involves a soccer ball. Several years ago, over a winter break, Elijah and I traveled to Israel. And we were going to see the country, and we did. And Elijah, before the trip, said, "May I bring a soccer ball?" Well, I thought, okay, how? And he said, "Don't worry, I have a pump." And he did. And we had some free time, and it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Jerusalem. And he said, "Okay, can I go kick a soccer ball around?" "Sure." And guess what? There's a park with a pitch right across the street from our hotel. So we walked over, and Elijah started kicking the ball around on the pitch, only person there. And about 5 minutes later, several kids came up on bicycles. They were Arab kids. They couldn't speak English, and of course we couldn't speak Arabic. But they motioned, "Hey, soccer, can we join you?" And Elijah said, "Sure, come on, let's do it." And so Elijah and these 4 kids started kicking the soccer ball around. About 10 minutes later, another kid came, a Jewish kid, and he asked, Got a pickup soccer game here?" "Sure." "Can I join?" "Of course." And so 2 Jewish kids, 4 Arab kids kicking a soccer ball around. About 10 minutes later, a family came. They were tourists from Germany, and there were 2 kids there who were soccer players. "Got a game going?" "Sure." "Come on, let's play together." Christian kids. And so we had a pickup soccer game in the middle of Jerusalem with 4 Arabs, 2 Jews, and 2 Christians, just enjoying the day. Isn't this a dream? It will never appear in the paper, but Elijah Harper is the type of guy who made dreams like this be realized. And that's why I am so honored to introduce to you our grandson, Elijah Scout Harper.
Good morning, Collegiate. I hope everyone is having a great start to their mornings. It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that it's my turn to give my senior speech. After years of listening, and sometimes not, So many senior speeches, I suppose I'm up to bat. Now, I'm not a great Jew. I know what some of you may be thinking. He doesn't even look Jewish. Though you may have been misconceived by my appearance, I have indeed been raised in a Jewish household. Now, if you think classes can be boring, those of you who have gone to religious school may know what I'm talking about. Wednesday and Sunday school each week was something I dreaded going to. I'm fortunate that I no longer have to sit through the snooze fest. However, as a senior, I found myself at the beginning of adulthood no longer being forced to attend temple either. Now, there's one thing that I took away every time I attend the service. When all the prayers were prayed and the songs were sung, my grandfather would walk up to the top of the stairs. Regardless of his experienced years, he would never sit down as to engage the listening members. I did my best to sit still, as any hyperactive child could, to ensure I listened to my grandfather's weekly Torah portion. The Torah portion is a small section of the 5 books of Moses that relates to the week of the service. While the portions may have had a more religious purpose, I always found that the story had some form of a lesson to internalize. Now, in the spirit of my grandfather, I want to teach you something. Next Monday is the beginning of Pesach, or as most of you know it, as Passover. The Passover story begins when the Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, begins worrying that the Jews will outnumber his people. His response? To force those Jews into slavery, a slavery lasting 430 years. The situation became so oppressive that an eventual Pharaoh decreed that every firstborn male child to the Hebrews should be drowned in the Nile. One baby named Moses is saved and adopted by the Pharaoh's own daughter. When Moses grows up, he was instructed by God to command the Pharaoh to let the Jews go free. Pharaoh rejects his plea, and God sets out to convince him by way of the 10 plagues. As the story goes, during the 10th and final plague, God passes through the land of Egypt and strikes down the firstborn of every Egyptian household. The Jews were instructed to mark their doors with the blood of a lamb they sacrificed, the Passover offering. And so God passes over their homes. Jews give thanks for being passed over, hence the name Passover, and protected from the plagues. It's a reminder that even when Jews are oppressed, the Bible teaches that they are a chosen people and will survive. Even Pharaoh's son is killed during this final plague, and as a result, Pharaoh lets the Jews go free, before changing his mind as Pharaoh's do. After leaving Egypt, Moses and the people are pursued by Pharaoh's army. The ensuing chase ends up with them being trapped in front of the Red Sea before God parts it, enabling the Jews to cross. This divine act of intervention that finally leads them to freedom, and after 40 years in the desert, the land of Israel. For me, the story is about freedom and the will to persevere with faith against all odds. Freedom to me is the power or right to speak, act and change as one wants, without hindrance or restraint. This is something I think we as people all value. We share the ability to make independent decisions and take actions based on personal judgment. The pursuit of happiness is also a fundamental goal, as freedom plays a crucial role in achieving happiness. Freedom allows individuals the ability to pursue their aspirations, expressing themselves as they wish, and live life in a meaningful manner. Freedom is also essential for personal growth and development, providing space for individuals to learn, explore, and grow. Remember when I said I wasn't a great Jew? I feel that way because I don't attend temple or Hebrew school like I used to, but I still embody the lessons I've learned. And I still think about how those lessons apply to the world in my life. Ask yourselves, what does freedom mean to you? All of us are fortunate to be a part of the Louisville collegiate community. We share freedoms that other communities may not experience. Because we have experienced these freedoms, we have the chance to free others from whatever restraints they face. As I and all of you have the chance or take the steps to leave the collegiate community, I encourage that we all honor our grandparents, and parents, and not take our freedoms for granted. Thank you.
Our second speaker today is Harvey Cahill.
I know more about collegiate teachers' recycling habits than anyone else in this room. I also believe that I hold the record for the fastest individual time to take out the entirety of collegiate's upper school recycling. I know Miss Wyron's recycling can went missing, Mr. Rucker's recycling can is weirdly oversized, and that Dr. Link's recycling can is recyclable in itself. I don't know all of this because I'm some hippie recycling guru. I'd say that I'm probably the opposite. I know this because of the vast amount of time I've spent after school in detention taking out the recycling. I'm collegiate's recycling specialist, and my second in command is usually either Dixon Jones or Ben Abbott, who also often find themselves serving afternoon detention alongside myself. Among the other detention responsibilities I've served are Operation Dust Bunny, official doorknob cleaner, and snack replenisher. However, the million-dollar question is, how do I always find myself in detention? And to what extent is avoiding detention a viable reality? This is a question that even I'm yet to have a complete answer to, but I wrote this speech to explore this question. You can take this speech as a lesson, a warning, or any other way you choose, but to understand my roots, my early days of detentions, I have to take you back to a time long, long ago to the hallways of St. X, my previous school. At St. X, instead of detentions, they use jugs. Some of you may know about the infamous jugs, but for those who don't, allow me to explain. JUG is an acronym which stands for Justice Under God, a fitting name for a Catholic school detention. One jug lasts an hour, and you have to stand, face the wall, keep your mouth shut, and stare. That's it. For an hour, nothing else. I've served my fair share of jugs, but nothing compared to the detentions that I've accumulated at Collegiate. So, what went wrong? I transferred to Collegiate on January 24th, 2022. The first point I received at Collegiate was on January 25th, 2022. It was for not having my swipe card, which would make sense because I had not yet been issued my swipe card. I forgive you, Miss Hawbaker, and not to worry because Miss Staley took mercy on me and did not make me serve at detention. However, since that first point I received, a little over 2 years later, I estimate I received about 35 additional points. These points have resulted in numerous discipline court hearings, which have gotten progressively easier, arguments which have become tamer, and as much as I hate to admit it, each point has served as its own individual lesson. Now, I've gotten points for a very wide range of things. Most commonly, it's for uniform violations and such. But there have been instances of using explicit language or leaving campus without signing out. My favorite was the point I received on my third day of school ever at Collegiate. Bart Richey, a then senior, tried to put me into a trash can. So I, of course, was not going to let this happen without a fight. So when Mr. Rucker came around the corner, it looked like Bart and I were having a wrestling match in the hallway. I don't think Mr. Rucker even knew my name at this point. But Bart and I both received points for this incident, and I like to remind Barton of this. Now, the key lesson I learned from this, which may not seem substantial, but was immensely helpful for the rest of my time at Collegiate, is Mr. Rucker doesn't play around when it comes to issuing points. That was my first, but certainly not my last point received from Mr. Rucker. Now, was this situation sheer bad luck? That Mr. Rucker happened to turn the corner just as I was about to deliver my finishing move on Barton? Or was this impulsivity on my part, to be fighting in the hallway during my first week of school? There's likely an argument to be made for both sides, but considering the speech is meant to be introspective, meaning I must be honest with myself, I'll say that this was impulsivity. This point, along with my 30 or so other points, were avoidable points. It's taken me a while to come to terms with this daunting reality that most of the points were my fault. Most of the points were avoidable. Yelling the F word in a public setting was my fault. Leaving school for an hour without telling anyone was yet again my fault. And those other 20 points for not having my swipe card were truly, for the most part, points that could have been avoided. But I do want to make something clear, to especially some of the teachers in this room, even if all else is forgotten from this speech, I do care about the rules. I don't do these things for attention, humor, or to disrespect anyone, but really I become genuinely so impulsive in these moments that any rules, norms, or morals that should be followed go completely out of the window. Maybe I was born this way, maybe it was the 3 siblings, but above all, I don't actually enjoy receiving these points. So, guys, I know holding the record time for taking out their recycling is pretty cool. That's undeniable. However, it's not something that should be replicated. I don't say this because I'm worried that someone will beat my time. I say it because I believe that getting points is actually something that I've learned is not respectable. To break the rules is to disrespect the rules. And to disrespect the rules is an easy way for it to feel like a lot of teachers dislike you. A lot of teachers disliking you just may create a subconscious bias in their grading schemes. Lower grades lead to lower GPAs. Lower GPAs lead to more college rejections. So take it from me, someone who was rejected from a lot of colleges. Getting points is not worth it, so do what you can to avoid it while you still can. Thank you.
Our third speaker today is Tate Hill, and Tate will be introduced by Mr. Franco.
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. Do you all remember the first day of 7th grade math when I showed you that PowerPoint? It's still true. You'll get it later. All right. Good morning. 3 or so years ago, Tate told me I was introducing her for her senior speech. The key phrase being told me, not asked me. Fair enough. I thought to myself, surely Tate will become engrossed in the bustling day-to-day of the upper school and eventually find another teacher with cool hair to take my place. But no. Tenacity is a core tenet of Tate's character. Every year, every time I have crossed paths with her in the hallways of Collegiate, she says, "Don't forget that you're doing my senior speech." Well, Tate, here it is. While Tate has grown exponentially as a person since I've last had her in class, I found that the report card comment I wrote for her in 7th grade was still pretty apt. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know Tate as her advisor and teacher. She is fun, energetic, and perceptive. She is also a strong student, and I can count on her to support and encourage her peers. However, Tate's challenge is that she is a natural leader and sometimes has difficulty on deciding whether to be productive or to socialize. I believe Tate will continue to do well, but she will excel if she chooses to be more efficient with her time and does all the little things. I'd also like to add here that she is truly kind at heart. Here is an email she sent me in 2018. Dear Mr. Franco, I apologize for my rudeness. I did not mean for it to sound as demanding and rude as it came out as. Sorry. Also sorry I couldn't be your sheep. While I no longer have any idea what she was talking about, my response is still the same as it was then. Tate, I appreciate the sentiment, but you are a sheep. You're not a sheep, sorry. You're not a sheep. You are a star. Please welcome Tate Hill.
I hope you have fun at your sister's wedding. Oh, wait. Sorry guys, let me remove my staple here. A lot of the time, I go back and question why I do what I do. I wonder if some of the odd choices I made when I was little have made me act the way I do now. Honestly, I think eating hand sanitizer wipes and sucking on the hand sanitizer wipes as a child explains a lot about my brain development growing up. But someone could explain that better than me, and that is no other than Kelly Clarkson. It was the year 2011. While shuffling songs on my Hello Kitty radio, I hear the famous one-liner. Kelly Clarkson wisely sings, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." It was when I heard those lyrics I knew my sneaky plans were all destined for success. However, I think that message was supposed to be used to overcome adversity, and instead I used it as permission to do whatever I wanted. Now, back to eating hand sanitizer. I was a menace at Chick-fil-A, and it did not help me that accompanying me was Tori. We saw any chance we got to go to Chick-fil-A as a gateway to free wipes. The perfect red box filled to the brim with 4x4 chemical-soaked napkins was somehow so enticing. So we pleaded not to go to the drive-thru, my mom usually agreeing so she could spare the mess in the car. Once our kids' meal were ordered, we just had to wait for the queue. My pleasure. Then we sprinted. We climbed up the disgusting play structure to the tunnel to devise our plan. How could we get the most wipes without actually looking like we had a problem? Back then, there used to be someone standing at the door guarding the wipes. Or maybe they didn't even care about the wipes at all, and it was for children's safety. Who knows? But in our eyes, they were the ones to beat. So our plan, grab and run. We did just that, and it worked. Tori and I then went back to the car, eager to eat the wipes. This is where Kelly came in every time. If ever for 1 second I doubted sucking on those chemicals, that one little one-liner would just hum in my ear. Now, my mom claims she never saw me and Tori indulging in our hand sanitizer wipes or even drinking out of those little travel bottles. If she did, I really would hope she told us to stop. But Tori and I usually do not understand how we did not die from those chemicals or at least have something majorly wrong. Even though my mom was blind to our gremlin acts, I will never forget the day I let my dad see my devious, impulsive child mind. We were driving on the highway, I-64 to be exact, and we were on the way to Cracker Barrel, in my mind, solely to fuel my sugar addiction, get my large stack of pancakes covered in syrup, and top it off with a side of candy from the gift shop. My mouth was already watering, and I know it. However, my mind quickly drifted away from the stack awaiting me when I realized, and I mean deeply realized, that my arm and hand were in perfect reach of the car door handle. It was so simple, so sneaky. I just had to lift that small metal hinge and give a little push. So as Kelly Clarkson sang in my ears, I did just that. While flying 60 miles per hour down the highway, probably faster knowing done, I opened the car door, the wind so strong and loud it perfectly blocked the sound of my dad's cries. I was in pure bliss. My dad's screams getting louder quickly silenced Miss Clarkson in my head, and begrudgingly I shut the door. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Let's just say good thing I didn't tell Frank the Tank that. You'd think by the age of 14 I would have matured, or at least a little. And with that maturity, my risky and sometimes impulsive actions would be left in the past. No. One beautiful summer morning, Thea and I woke up, stomachs grumbling for one thing and one thing only, donuts. We called up Frank the Tank and he immediately hung up. Predictable. I got the text, work. If you knew Thea and me at all at that age, we were sugar gremlins, so of course we were going to find a way to get a breakfast full of it in our systems. I suggested walking to the nearest Dunkin', despite the heavy rain, that was perfectly located about a 5-minute walk away. And as Frank the Tank would say, we were lazy bums, so we decided that was out of question. I even suggested biking to Krispy Kreme, max a 10-minute bike ride, but yet again, out of bumminess, we shut it down. That was when we got creative. Thea and I decided it was only going to work if we crafted them up ourselves. A little flour here, a big pot of oil there, we were set. We boiled that big pot of oil until it was about 570 degrees Fahrenheit, bubbles popping and all. That's when we thought it was ready. We took our first donut of dough and chucked it in. We noticed something though, that oil that had splashed out of the pot fully caught on fire underneath the stove. Out of fear in the fact we assumed our donuts would fail anyway, we decided maybe it's best to DoorDash and clean up. But oh, what to do with that big pot of oil that was still so freshly hot? What else would you do but rinse it out with nice cold water? Well, I stopped Thea just before her hand went to lift the water handle and told her usually my dad lets oil pans cool before putting water on them. She quickly replied, that's probably for no good reason. Without hesitation and further judgment, I lifted the handle myself, and Thea and I were quickly sprayed with oil. Oh, but that's not all. The kitchen was covered in a huge cloud of smoke, and before I could even open my eyes, the fire alarm was already going off. We scurried like actual critters outside, and while I tried to call the neighbors for help, the firemen arrived just in time. How convenient. They had asked us what happened and said that mixing hot oil and water was common knowledge on how to start a fire, which was honestly really humbling because I had no idea. And after our brain development was degraded for probably about an hour, they left my house and gave us a beautiful $500 fine. Sorry, parents. Now the question is, have I learned my lesson about impulsivity? Maybe not all the time. Has my brain developed more so I can make more thoughtful decisions? Debatable. But I like to say that it has, and that I usually think more before doing a lot of the simple things. So why do I do the things I do? Whether it was the chemical fumes and borax from making too much slime, or from sucking on hand sanitizer wipes, or I could blame it on Kelly Clarkson's song, I definitely think that my brain developed a little bit slower when it came to making risky decisions. But that's okay. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Can we get a final round of applause for today's speakers? You all are